This is absolutely perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
The colours are incredible this time of year.
I'm just so happy we could all be here.
Faintly of coffee, polished wood, and something sweet baking in the oven. The narrator, a 22-year-old college student, drops by to see his longtime friend, but the real gravity of the moment starts when the door opens, and it's her standing there instead. The friend's mom, 40 years old, effortlessly beautiful in that unstudied way mature women carry. Long black hair falling freely over a light cardigan, faint smile lines softening her face, and eyes that hold warmth with a trace of curiosity. She greets him with that easy, open laughter that instantly disarms him. But it's the second look, the half-second pause before she steps aside to let him in, that quietly shifts everything. There's a delicate awkwardness in the air, the kind that doesn't need to be spoken. He tries to keep his voice casual, polite, maybe a little too formal, the way a younger man instinctively does when he feels suddenly aware of himself. She catches it, of course. Her smile lingers. She teases lightly about how polite he's become since she last saw him, her tone playful, but eyes searching, almost testing. The conversation flows in small ripples, about school, about how fast time moves, about her son always being late. Her laughter fills the space, not loud, just easy and genuine, with that slight rasp that comes from age and confidence. The narrator notices things he shouldn't. How she tucks her hair behind her ear when she laughs, the faint scent of vanilla on her wrist as she pours iced tea, the way she looks directly into his eyes when she speaks, unhurried, fearless. Inside, he's trying to anchor himself. It's innocent. It has to be. She's his friend's mom. But every gesture feels too human to ignore. The way her voice softens when she asks about his plans after graduation, how her fingers brushes when handing him a glass. The world outside could be loud and chaotic, but in that kitchen, time seems suspended, light spilling through the window in soft gold. When her son finally appears, the moment breaks, but not completely. There's still that quiet undercurrent when she looks back once more before turning away, her lips curved in that same amused smile that started everything. That night, he can't quite explain why his mind keeps replaying her laugh, or the way his stomach tightened when she said his name. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something that felt dangerously close to the beginning of one. This first part establishes tone and emotional tension. Innocence meeting awareness, boundaries meeting curiosity. It's not about what happens, it's about what feels like it could. The subtle realization that a single afternoon might have awakened something neither of them expected, and both are quietly afraid to name. The next time they meet, it isn't planned. He's there again to drop off a notebook his friend forgot, expecting a quick in and out, but she answers the door once more. This time, the surprise between them carries a different kind of awareness. The first glance lingers longer than politeness allows, and the air feels heavier, quieter. She's dressed simply, soft blue blouse, jeans, hair tied loosely in a way that makes her look effortlessly graceful. There's a faint trace of perfume, something floral and warm, and he realizes how much he notices her now. Her voice, her gestures, her laughter that seems to pull him in before he can think twice. She invites him in for coffee, casually, naturally, and he hesitates just for a second but agrees. The kitchen is calm, sunlight spilling across the counter, and the sound of the coffee machine fills the silence between them. She moves with the ease of someone who knows she's being watched and doesn't mind. When she turns and catches him glancing, she smiles, not mocking but knowingly soft. "You're nervous," she says, with a quiet laugh that ripples through the stillness. "That makes you even cuter." It's playful, but the words hit differently. His throat tightens, his pulse jumps. He doesn't know how to respond, and she seems to enjoy that, watching him fumble for words before handing him a cup. Their fingers brush again, not by accident this time, and her gaze stays on him just long enough for the moment to feel suspended. They sit across from each other, the sunlight making everything seem too bright, too intimate. She asks about his studies, his life, his goals, listening with an attentiveness that feels rare. He finds himself talking more than he expected, laughing at small things, feeling strangely seen. She listens with that patient warmth that only comes from experience, not just hearing him, but understanding him. And then, as he talks about struggling to figure life out, she leans forward slightly, resting her chin on her hand. "You remind me of your friend when he was younger," she says softly. "Except you carry yourself differently. Quieter, more thoughtful." He doesn't know what to say. The compliment is simple, but it lands deep, too personal to brush off. Her tone isn't flirtatious. It's gentle, sincere, but something in her eyes says she knows the effect she has. When her son's voice echoes faintly from upstairs, she straightens up, sipping her coffee to hide the faintest smile. The spell breaks, but the warmth stays. As he leaves, she walks him to the door. "Don't be such a stranger," she says, her voice soft and teasing at once. "You make good company." He nods, pretending calm, but his thoughts are chaos. On the walk home, the world feels changed, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. That brief laughter, that teasing line, it wasn't just a joke. It was an invitation neither of them had expected to feel. Days turn into weeks, and what started as coincidence begins to feel like quiet routine. He visits often now, sometimes under the excuse of helping his friend study, other times just stopping by, because it feels natural, but every visit finds its rhythm around her presence. Even when she isn't speaking directly to him, he feels her there. The soft sound of her humming while doing chores, the gentle brush of her hand as she passes him a drink, the way her laughter always finds him first in a room. There's no plan between them, no confession, no spoken boundary. Yet the silence between words grows more meaningful. When she asks if he's eaten, it's more than politeness. When she teases him for being shy, her eyes stay on him a moment too long. And when he catches her looking at him from across the room, she doesn't look away right away anymore. One afternoon, it's raining, one of those steady, warm rains that makes everything outside look softer. He's helping her carry in groceries. The moment is simple, domestic even, but something about it feels different. She laughs when he fumbles with a paper bag, the sound of her voice mixing with the rain tapping on the windows. When she thanks him, her hand rests lightly on his arm. A small touch, but it feels like the world shrinks to that single point of contact. They sit afterward, both pretending to watch the rain. The house feels quiet, their conversation drifting easily from little jokes to more personal things. She talks about her work, her days alone, how she's been learning to take things slower. He listens, really listens, because he can sense something beneath her calm. A hint of loneliness she hides behind her easy smile. At one point, she admits, "It's strange, you know. You grow older, and people start seeing you as complete. Like you've stopped needing anyone." Her voice softens. But that's not always true. He doesn't interrupt. There's a kind of vulnerability in her words that feels sacred, something he doesn't want to disturb. When she finally looks up, their eyes meet, quiet, steady, unguarded. A moment passes. Not long, but enough for both to feel it. The air seems to hold its breath. Then, as if realizing she said too much, she smiles again. That soft, graceful smile that hides more than it reveals, and excuses herself to check on something in the kitchen. He sits there, heartbeat steady but fast, the echo of her words lingering. Something inside him shifts. She's not just his friend's mom anymore. She's a person he's come to understand, admire, maybe even crave the presence of. By the time she returns, the rain has stopped, and sunlight filters back through the glass. She stands beside him quietly, their shoulders almost touching, and says with a half-smile, "Seems the rain brought the calm back, didn't it?" He nods, but the calm is only on the surface. Inside, everything is beginning to stir. It happens on an evening that begins like any other, an unplanned visit that turns into something quietly unforgettable. Her son isn't home. He's out late with friends, and she's alone when the doorbell rings. She seems pleasantly surprised to see him standing there, holding a small box of pastries he picked up on his way. "Bribing your way in now?" she teases, smiling as she opens the door wider. There's warmth in her tone, familiar, teasing, and something else that hums beneath it. Inside, the house feels unusually still. The lights are soft, The smell of freshly brewed tea lingers, and a faint song plays from the radio in the kitchen. Something slow, nostalgic. She's dressed simply, a cream sweater and dark jeans, her hair down and slightly tousled. The kind of casual beauty that feels effortlessly intimate. They sit together, talking about small things at first, his classes, her favorite old movies, how quickly the seasons are changing. But the conversation drifts deeper, almost unintentionally. He finds himself asking questions about her. Not just polite ones, but real ones. What she wanted to do before she settled into this quiet life. What makes her laugh? What she misses? She answers with surprising honesty. I used to think I'd travel more. Maybe paint again. But then life just became about keeping things steady. She glances at him, her eyes soft but searching. Do you ever think about what you'll regret not doing? He nods, not trusting himself to speak. The question feels too close, too revealing. There's a silence that follows, but it's not empty. It's charged, filled with the soft hum of unspoken things. When she stands to pour more tea, he catches himself watching her, the quiet confidence in the way she moves, the grace in every small action. She notices, of course, when she turns and meets his eyes, there's no embarrassment in her gaze. Only a faint smile, understanding, gentle. You look so serious, she says lightly. What's on your mind? He almost laughs it off, but doesn't. He admits, voice low, honest. The words hang there, simple, dangerous. For a heartbeat, neither speaks. Then she looks down, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and says softly, "That's not something you should say so easily." But her tone isn't cold. It's tender, cautious, but not rejecting. She sits back down beside him, closer this time. "You're kind," she murmurs, looking ahead. "And you make it very hard to pretend I don't notice things I shouldn't." The radio plays a softer tune now, something wistful, like the evening itself. Outside, the light fades into gold and shadow. They sit there quietly, two people caught between right and real, between what's safe and what feels alive. When he finally leaves, her voice follows him from the doorway. "Take care," she says softly. "And don't make me miss that smile too soon." He walks away with the echo of her words, knowing something invisible has changed, and there's no going back to the ease they had before. The days that follow feel different, quieter, slower, but charged with something neither dares to name. What was once casual has turned careful. Every visit feels deliberate now, every glance stretched just a little longer. They've built an unspoken rhythm, a conversation carried by eyes, silences, and small gestures that mean more than words ever could. It's late afternoon when he visits again, helping her move a few things from the garage. The work is light, but the closeness isn't. Each time their hands brush while passing boxes, there's a quiet current between them, small sparks disguised as coincidence. She laughs off the moments, but her laughter feels softer, more restrained, as if she's aware of the same tension but doesn't know how to untangle it. When they finally sit to rest, the sun is low, pouring gold through the window. She hands him a glass of water, her fingers brushing his once more, a familiar, fleeting warmth that lingers too long. "You've been a real help," she says, her voice calm, but her smile carries something heavier. "I don't know what I'd do without you lately." He shrugs, trying to sound casual. "Guess I like being around." Her eyes lift a quiet pause. "Even noticed?" It's a simple reply, but it lands like a confession. The air shifts, thickens. Neither moves for a moment. The quiet stretches, and he feels his heartbeat in his chest like a drum. Then she looks away first, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. A small, graceful act that feels almost shy. They talk again, this time about everything and nothing. How her garden never grows the way she wants. How he still hasn't figured out what he wants to do with his life. The conversation feels easy, but beneath it, something else brews, a pull deep and steady. At one point, she gets up to check the oven. When she leans down, a few strands of her hair fall forward, and without thinking, he reaches to tuck them back behind her ear. His fingertips barely graze her skin, warm, soft, familiar, and for a split second, she freezes. Their eyes meet. Neither speaks. The gesture, though innocent, carries weight. He pulls back slightly, murmuring an apology, but she shakes her head slowly. "Don't," she says, her voice low. "It's okay." It's the smallest permission, yet it feels enormous. The oven timer rings, sharp, sudden, breaking the moment. She exhales, turning away quickly, pretending to fuss with the food. He can tell she's trying to steady herself, the way she avoids his gaze, the slight tremor in her breath. When he finally stands to leave, the evening light paints everything soft and gold. At the door, she looks at him, not smiling, just looking. "Next time," she says quietly, "maybe stay for dinner, if you're not too busy." He nods, his voice failing him. As he steps out, the weight of her words lingers like warmth on his skin, an invitation wrapped in restraint, daring him to come closer while pretending it's just kindness. The dinner she mentioned wasn't supposed to mean anything. That's what he tells himself as he walks up her front steps the following weekend, heart unreasonably fast for a simple meal. But from the moment she opens the door, everything feels different, softer, more deliberate. She greets him with a smile that doesn't quite hide her nerves, dressed in a way that's casual yet impossibly elegant, a dark green dress that flatters her figure, her hair loose and shining under the warm glow of the hallway light. The scent of something rich and homemade drifts through the air, rosemary, garlic, and something faintly sweet. "You're right on time," she says, stepping aside. "I almost thought you wouldn't come." "I said I'd stay for dinner," he replies, trying to keep his voice steady. Her laugh is quiet, fond. "Yes, but sometimes people change their minds." The table is already set, candles lit, soft music playing from somewhere in the background. It's not romantic on purpose, but the intimacy of it hangs in the air. He helps carry dishes from the kitchen, and every time their hands meet, that same subtle electricity passes between them. Neither mentions it now. It's too familiar, too natural. They eat slowly, talking about small things, books, travel, her son's endless jokes, the strange comfort of routine. The laughter comes easily, but between each pause, there's a different kind of silence, one that feels full rather than empty. At one point, she catches him staring. Instead of looking away, she holds his gaze. "You have that look again," she says softly. "What look?" "The one that makes me forget how young you are." He doesn't know what to say. The words aren't flirtatious. They're fragile, honest, maybe even scared. She sets her fork down, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "You make this feel too easy," she admits. "And that's the part that worries me." He wants to tell her there's nothing to worry about, that he doesn't see her age, only her warmth, her laughter, the quiet strength behind her gentleness. But the words don't come out. Instead, he just says, "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." She smiles faintly, the kind that reaches her eyes but trembles at the edges. "Maybe not." After dinner, they move to the living room, sitting with cups of tea, the soft lamplight painting her face in gold. The space between them feels charged again, that familiar pull neither of them has the courage to acknowledge. When she laughs at something he says, she reaches out and touches his hand, just lightly, a small, instinctive gesture. Her thumb brushes over his skin for barely a heartbeat before she realizes it, and she starts to pull away. But he turns his hand slightly, letting their fingers rest together, warm and still. The world narrows to that moment. No words, no sounds, just two hands that don't want to let go. When she finally does, her voice is quiet. "It's late," she whispers. "You should go before I forget. I'm supposed to be the sensible one." He leaves without protest, but the image of her, candlelight soft on her face, her hands still warm against his, stays with him long after he's gone. Something's changed again. The boundaries between them aren't clear anymore, and neither of them truly wants to redraw them. Days turn into something that feels suspended, neither friendship nor confession, but something in between. Every message, every glance, every passing touch holds weight now. There's no pretending anymore. Both know what lingers beneath the quiet. The only question left is whether either of them will be brave enough to face it. It's a calm Sunday afternoon when it happens. The kind of day that feels ordinary on the surface, but somehow carries a quiet gravity. He stops by to return a book she lent him weeks ago. She's in the garden when he arrives, kneeling among pots of herbs and half-blooming flowers, the sunlight catching on her hair. She looks up, smiling that familiar, gentle smile. "You always find me in the middle of something," she teases, brushing dirt from her hands. "Maybe that's the only way I can catch you," he says before realizing how it sounds. But instead of teasing, she just looks at him, long enough for silence to settle between them again, heavy but not uncomfortable. They talk for a while as she tends to the plants, conversation flowing like it always does. But there's a change in her tone today, softer, introspective. She talks about how time feels faster now, how she's learned that the hardest part of life isn't loneliness, but learning when to stop fighting it. "You ever feel like you missed something," she says, "and you didn't even know it until too late?" He nods slowly. "I think I'm just realizing what I don't want to miss." Their eyes meet. For a heartbeat, the world goes still. She looks away first, exhaling a quiet, shaky laugh. "You always know what to say to make things complicated." He takes a slow step closer. "Or honest." That makes her pause. She's not smiling now, just looking at him, searching, measuring, feeling. The air between them is warm, close, filled with everything left unsaid. When he reaches out, his hand stops halfway, as if asking for permission without words. She doesn't move, doesn't pull back. Her eyes close briefly, then open again, soft, vulnerable, steady. "Don't," she whispers, though it sounds more like a plea than a warning. He drops his hand, but the space between them feels electric. Her breath trembles. "You have no idea how hard it is not to let you mean more than you should." "Then don't fight it," he says quietly. "Maybe some things aren't wrong. Just unexpected." For a long time, she says nothing. Then she steps forward and rests her hand lightly against his cheek, just for a moment. Her touch is gentle, trembling, filled with everything she won't say. When she pulls back, her smile is faint but real. "You'll understand someday," she says softly. "Why I had to stop here." He wants to ask what she means, but she turns toward the garden again, her back to him, sunlight wrapping around her like armor. He leaves with his heart full and heavy, realizing that sometimes love doesn't need to be claimed to be real. It only needs to be felt. That moment becomes their quiet ending. Not a goodbye, but an understanding. A slow burn story that never needed fire to stay warm.